You're saying something specifically to them that they're hearing.
Hold on, wait.
Can I finish the sentence?
Yeah.
You're saying something specifically that they're hearing, that they're keying in on, that I may not hear. That him is a non-racist. Let me finish.
What is this
that
thing
him
that
is a non-hit.
That you believe is being heard?
You've never heard the phrase "racist dog whistle"? You've never heard that?
See, he said.
Let him fit, bro. Let him answer. Like if we gonna really dance this dance, you gotta let the sentences come all the way out. I'm not stopping anybody from talking.
But you have to understand
everything that you're saying is hypothetical.
No, hold on, no math.
No, there's nothing hypothetical about the Confederate flag.
I see racist there, so I believe that he's racist. Oh, you ever heard of the racist dog whistle? None of this stuff is stuff that I can look at and be like, whoa, look at this racist.
That's not hypothetical.
Look, Matt,
okay, you know what? I'll fix it all right now. You ready? I don't think he's racist. I believe racists think he's racist. How's that for you?
I mean, that's what you said. But let me ask you a question.
That make you feel better?
Let me ask you a question, Mac.
Ask me a question.
I believe racists think you're racist.
Let me. You know they don't, but you know they don't.
Let me ask
you know they don't. See, you can't say that with a straight face.
Let me ask you a question.
When I'm talking, I'm absolutely straight face. I'm listening. I'm listening.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so special, I'm so special, I'm so special, so special, so special. I'm like Ichigo, master in a red suit. This my Bankai form, I'm about to let loose. Better make your next move your best move. Straight out the gate, niggas gon' hate and try to test you. Watch who you with, who your mans, who you next to. If you take a hit with some assist like a nephew,
you can never check us. Homie, this a chess move. Wrote this on a little short bus, I'm so special. If Mav say get him, I'ma get him. Ain't no talking when I pull up. Park up, hop out, run down with my hood up. Now what the fuck are you hating for? Can't DFG get money anymore?
It's hot for trapper turn smack rapper. Only smack rapper that you know is smack rapper.
All right, we back. My expert opinion, you know, if you're here, you definitely know what you're doing. You know, you're a smart person, Stay right here. 1 million subscribers. We just hit that mark. Hit that like, hit that share. Let everybody know you in here. Don't cost you no paper, even if you're a hater. It's free. It's free, guys. Just hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 2 million. Let's get it. Who I got in the building with me today?
Good morning.
Wow, that's a nice hoodie you're wearing.
Thank you.
Hey.
It was cold in the shop.
OSARIO is in the building with me.
In the building. I brought my law degree.
Oh,
wow. Would you like to see it?
Hold on. Yeah, for everyone who likes to forge. There you go.
Thank you.
There you go.
Please put it up there.
It's nice, yeah.
I think there were some people
that... Bianca just texted you too. I think
she's on her way. She's on her way, but I just wanted to show you.
Yes.
See right here? Y'all see
Good for you.
Congratulations. It's not a paralegal thing.
There we go right there. There we go right there, yeah.
But it was, I believe there was some haters in the comments.
There was no haters. No haters.
Last time. So
she liked to argue, so I sent her as the law school.
Just wanted to show that. Not that I'm, you know.
Is that a real law degree?
Here, let me show it to you.
What law school is it?
What law school?
New York Law School.
Oh, great. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was a long time ago. I don't talk about it a lot. It was a very long time ago, but the last time I was here, it kind of came up, and there was some doubt.
I mean, you know, I respect it.
Thank you.
And shout out to everybody else that does the online classes. Shout out to y'all, man.
Yeah, it doesn't mean I know everything about the law. It just means I went to school. That's it.
All right. Speaking of law, how you doing, sir?
Thank you.
All right. Anything?
Yeah, these things are
Taylor.
Gat
Taylor is in the building.
I'm in the building, man.
How you doing, man?
I feel good, man.
Yeah.
Yo, man, go get that new Brooklyn Way sweatsuit. It's online right now. The BrooklynWayShop.com. I'm back in business. Holla at me, hit me up for them Sweatsuits is full now. Shout out to the homie D Chambers on that settlement. Salute to you, homie.
Shout out
I
to
like
D
to
Chambers.
see everybody win. Salute.
That's a fact.
Word. Big Brooklyn.
Know what would have helped that?
What?
Me wearing the sweatsuit, it would have been.
Nigga, you wore the sweatsuit.
I need another one.
I got you.
I need another one. All right.
Spread love.
Peace. Franchise in the building.
Franchise Global in the building. Harlem.
Mando. SPINOZA back again.
Tramel.
Yeah, Tramel with us. The unofficial new host. I don't know. Math got to send that contract over though. You know what I mean?
It's all good. You know what I mean? We're working on some things.
Now I'm happy to be here. You know, help my brother out any way I can. You know, me and Math been friends for a very long time. So him winning is me winning whether I'm here or not. So you know.
We twinning today.
Yeah, as we should, right? We winning. We twinning and winning.
We twinning and winning.
Yeah.
Wow.
Twinning and winning.
Shiny.
Mec. How you doing, man?
I've been better. Rest in peace, Marcellus Williams. Mike Parsons, I hope you have to live with what you did. Rest in peace, Marcellus Williams, and condolences to his family, his friends, his supporters, family victim, the victim's family. Peace to all of y'all. But unnecessary, not okay.
Not okay. Not okay. Moment of silence. Rest in peace. And today, man, back in the building. One of my favorite interviews. Last time you were here, you were so truthful. You were so honest. And it was refreshing. I said to myself when you walked out that door, if he runs, I'm voting for him.
Thank you. This is where I got my start.
This is where you got to start, the podcast.
Right, the barbershop.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I mean, you've been doing that. You went from here to Joe Rogan, you know?
Yeah.
Cool, we try to get there too, just cool. Bobby Kennedy is back in the building. Now, where do we start? Where we starting? How you been, first of all?
I'm good.
Still catching snakes?
Yep, I did. I caught one the other day, about 6 weeks ago. There was one in my driveway. I was on a Zoom call with a big group of people, and my assistant came in and said, there's a rattlesnake in the driveway. And I went out and grabbed it. She filmed it, and it went viral. Oh,
dope.
Yeah.
Dope.
We got one, mate.
He's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know how you do that.
With those.
I'm telling you, you should teach a class. That like should
Or not.
Let me tell you what happened when I first went hiking with Bobby, and he's talking about grabbing snakes. I said, this man better not get bit with no snake with me. It'd be a crazy conspiracy. You have me nervous. Like, he was actually looking for the snakes on the hike.
Right.
I just, you know, you and animals in general just kind of have this thing happening. Snakes, bears, whales. Like, bro, what's
going on?
What's going on? It
How
said
angry
that
are you?
You left a dead bear in the park?
I'm not. I'll tell you what happened with that. I train hawks. I tell you that.
You train hawks?
I train hawks.
He goes hawking.
When I was 9 years old, I started training hawks, and I've been doing it for 60 years. And I wrote some of the laws that, for example, in this state that govern falconry, and I wrote the exam that people take to become a falconer. And I was the president of the Falconry Association here in the state. So you catch wild hawk. It takes about 2.5 weeks to train it. You train it to come back when you call. And then it follows you in the trees when you walk through the woods. And you usually have a dog, and when a rabbit or a squirrel, pheasant, turkey jumps up, the hawk will go catch it for you.
How do you train a hawk?
You really only have to train them to come when you call. And you do that. When you catch the hawk, you put a hood on them because they get calm when they're in the dark. And then you take the hood off and you get them to sit on your fist. the first part of it is breaking him. So you have to sit with him maybe for 2 days. And he gets so hungry and you have a little piece of meat on your fist. He knows that meat's there, but he doesn't want to take his eyes off you because he's scared. Finally, he'll bend down, he'll take that meat off your fist, and then you put him away for the night. The next day, you make him step onto your fist. The next day, you make him hop onto it. And you get farther and farther away every day. And ultimately, you take him outside, put him on a string, and make him fly the length of a football field as soon as you call him. And when they do that, they're ready to cut the string and fly it free. And that's the beginning. And then you start teaching them that if they follow you, you're going to kick up game. And they realize you're their partner. And you develop a relationship with them. And I fly usually 2 at a time. They sit on the back seat of my car. I'll drive to wherever I'm going to go hunting.
They don't sit on your shoulders?
No, they sit always on your left hand.
Wow.
And on a glove. And you hunt with them. And I've been doing it my whole life. And I've trained almost every kind of hawk in the hemisphere. But I was driving up in Orange County, New York. I keep my birds up there. And I was taking a group of people hunting that day. They had won an auction. So, we had sold it as a benefit to my environmental group. And I was supposed to meet them up there. And on the way up, I was going maybe 7 o'clock in the morning, and a bear runs across the highway. And a woman in front of me hits it, kills it. And I got out and looked at it. The bear was in very good condition. I thought, I'm going to go home. I'm going to skin the bear. I'm going to take the meat and put it in my freezer. You can legally do that here in New York State. You have to apply for a bear tag that within 24 hours. And it's all legal. So I put the bear there, but then we went falconing. I put him in the back of my minivan. We went falconing.
Wait, you put the bear in the back of a minivan.
My minivan, yeah. So
you put like a hat and some glasses on.
It was a weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah, that's crazy. Not a pickup truck, a minivan. Let's be clear.
Yeah, so, and then we go hawking. But we catch a lot of game, and the people are having a lot of fun. We end up going much later than we would because everybody was having fun. And then part of the auction was we had to go into New York City to Peter Luger's Steakhouse. You're from Brooklyn, right? And you know where Peter Luger's Steakhouse is? Yeah, it's the best steakhouse in New York. At least it was then. There may be better ones now. But I don't know if it's famous. We went there and it got late and I had a plane in the morning. And if you're when you skin an animal, you have to field dress them, which is, you have to immediately take their viscera out. Otherwise, they start to rot and the meat gets bad and the skin gets bad. And I hadn't done that. So, and I realized I can't go home now. I'm going to have to go to the airport. And I don't want to leave this dead bear in my car while I
was about to ask, so you're in Peter Luger's, but the bear's in the car? Where's the bear?
Yeah, the bear was in the car.
Still in the car.
In Brooklyn?
Yeah, in Brooklyn.
That's crazy. He over there by Marcy. Yo, son.
Somebody wanted to steal something out that car.
They probably thought it was a fur. Probably thought it was a fur.
No, shit. That's wow. Okay,
that's crazy.
So that bear is still in your car. You got to go.
Yeah, and as it happened, I had an old bicycle in the car that I was trying to get rid of. It was all, broken up bike. And at that time, this was, I don't know, 15 years ago, they had just put the bike lanes in here in New York. And I don't know if you remember at that time, but a lot of people were getting hit by bikes because they weren't used to it.
Yeah, the bike lane. Yeah.
Right? And a bunch of people got hit. I think a person got killed by a bike. It was big news in Central Park. Somebody got really badly hurt by a bike. So I said, I got to get rid of this bear, and I'm not leaving the city. And somebody had said, well, let's maybe we should leave the bear in the park and pretend that the bike hit it.
And you agreed to?
Yo.
Yeah, and the people with me had been drinking. I was not drinking because I don't drink.
Right.
So, but I thought that was a good idea too.
Nah. You hit a bear on the bike, you definitely not gonna. Come on, son. You're gonna injure yourself. Not gonna injure the bear. That was crazy.
How big was this bear?
Does it help if it's a baby bear or was it 6 months?
It was 6 months.
Baby.
Okay.
It's a baby.
Yeah, it was
All
a
right,
juvenile
cool.
bear. How'd you know that?
I read it.
Yeah.
Right.
Female.
It
Female baby bear that he decided to plant in the park and pretend that a bike hit and killed him. So he could catch that flight after he stayed too long in Peter Lucas.
Pretty much,
and
right.
pick the dead bear up, put it in the back of a minivan next to a broken bike. That's the story. That's the whole thing.
It was next to a broken bike.
Yeah,
No,
next to a broken
he
bike.
had the broken bike already. So use the broken bike and put it next to the dead baby bear and planted
So
the whole
somebody
scene.
hit the bear with the bike and just
No,
took
no,
off.
no.
They
They
ran. They ran off. Yeah, it was a hit
Well,
and run.
that's the scene.
It
That's
was a hit and run. Oh, I killed the bear. I'm out of here.
Yeah, basically. So, there you go.
Bobby,
No, I thought, you know, whoever found it, it would be kind of amusing for them. But then I woke up the next morning.
right.
And it was the front page news everywhere. And there were like pictures of like 20 police cars down there, and there was yellow tape all over, and there was helicopters over, and it was like front page news all over this country. You can go on Google and look at it.
Right.
There's probably 40 articles about it.
Well, were they amused?
What?
Were they
No,
amused?
people were not amused. It was horrifying to
Right.
And then they had a picture on TV of these guys in like Tyvek suits with gloves on, picking the bike up and saying the bike is going to Albany to be fingerprinted. And I was like, my fingerprints are all over that bike. And my fingerprints were on file here in New York State. So it worried me. Because I realized people did not think it was funny. And so anyway, the crisis passed. And then while I'm running for president, somebody tells me that the New Yorker somehow got that story. And I don't know how they got it because I wasn't telling a lot of people about it. But,
Not like you are now. That's good. Yeah. Right.
and they were doing a hit piece on me anyway, so they were going to be able to portray this story not as a funny joke, but as something like really
Horrific.
crazy and demented. So I told the story to Roseanne Barr, and then, you know, on a video, and then we released the video to preempt the New Yorker. And again, you know, it's now every time somebody mentions my name, it's, you know, in any of the sort of corporate media, which they have a long list of these stories to make me seem crazy, and I gave them a gift, right?
Right.
Anyway.
Okay, all right. So that's the bear story.
Bear story.
There's also a whale story.
Yeah, the whale story came out because my daughter told this story, I think 12 years ago. And I've collected specimens all my life. So if I see, first of all, when you're a falconer, if you see a dead hawk on the road, you always pick them up because you can use their feathers. If your hawk breaks a feather, you can use their feathers to transplant. It's called imping.
Right.
I always pick up dead hawks when I see them, but I pick up other specimens. If I see an animal that's unusual, like a porcupine or something like that. I've been doing this. My heroes when I was a kid were all, you know, I wanted to be a field biologist, which, you know, collect specimens. My heroes were Charles Darwin and all of the great biologists, and they all collected specimens. Teddy Roosevelt did the same thing. Franklin Roosevelt. I've been a taxidermist since I was a kid. Franklin Roosevelt, if you go to Hyde Park, he has he has every bird in New York State that he collected and mounted.
Wow.
So I have been collecting for 60 years. I've been collecting specimens, and I have, you know, I have them preserved. I have the shrimp and all kinds of aquatic specimens preserved. And
you do the preserving yourself?
Yes, I do it myself, and I mount animals myself. Wow. So I pick up interesting specimens wherever I see them. And this was a whale, and I didn't have one. And it was, and so I
well, what are you going to do? You don't have a whale. You got to get a whale. You got to get a whale.
Yeah.
You got a whale. You got to get one.
How big was the whale?
It was a baby whale. It was about the size of this room.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a baby. The size of this room.
No,
well, a whale, have you?
Yeah.
It's a whale. It's a whale.
Yeah.
Grown-up whales,
What,
the size
do you
of
remember
this
the
block.
species? Just like
It was, you couldn't tell because it was, by the way, it was in 1994, so it was 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. Right? And I had all kinds of permits for collecting animals. I had what they call a special license, which allows you from New York State, and I had federal licenses. I had all the licenses that I needed to collect
So
animals.
for everyone at home, don't go picking up whales, bears, and specimens.
It's not just
right?
a hobby you pick
need
up
a license
like this.
for that.
Some legal stuff you got to fill out first. Right.
So anyway, that was the story.
So you just no,
my daughter was.
That wasn't just a story. So what? Okay, you found the whale. How'd you get to the?
I took the head off, put it on the top of my car. And the kids remember it because every time we were on the Long Island Expressway and every time we slowed the car down, there was a lot of traffic. This kind of whale juice would go onto the windshield. And it didn't smell great.
Bobby's saying that like that's normal to us. It's not normal to us.
Well, what would you do in that circumstance? You do the same thing. Right?
If I find, oh no, Bobby, I wouldn't. You know, I'm from the islands. So I understand, like, you know,
You're from where?
all the wild stuff, Barbados.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have a small portion of my childhood. I grew up out there, so you know, every place I went, I had 3 dogs with me that followed me through the land. You know, my grandmother taught me how to feed horses, where to plant goats, all that stuff. So, you know, I get the kind of like wildlife curiosity thing. I used to go around finding stuff. But whales, I don't know. I don't know if I would have came across a whale, would I be like, let me take this home? You know what I'm saying? Not sure about that one.
Bro,
Not sure about
I've never seen a whale. I'm from South Jamaica, Queens. I've never seen a whale in person.
To city people, it sounds.
I've never seen a whale either.
Let alone a dead one. Let alone a dead one where I said, you know that head? I'm going to take that home, strap it on top of the car in traffic and just drive it back to the house.
While the whale juice is pouring.
Yeah, I got windshield wiper fluid. I'll be fine. But it's a dead whale, man. I got to get one of these. I've you know, sneakers.
Yes.
Sneakers,
hats,
collecting, yeah.
You know, comic books, watches, whale heads.
How many different?
Well, unlike Matt, I grew up in, you know, I was a future farmers of America growing up. I grew up on a farm. I was surrounded by wildlife and animals.
Right.
And I was always awe-stricken by them and fascinated by them and fascinated by their anatomy, by their habits. You know, I could sit all day long and watch pigeons. I had homing pigeons from when I was 7 years old. In fact, I did Mike Tyson's podcast a couple of years ago, and we talked the whole time about pigeons.
Pigeons, yeah.
Because he's a pigeon fancier, too.
Yeah, he loves pigeons.
Yeah. In fact, his first fight was over a pigeon, and he knocked the guy out, and that's when he was discovered.
Yeah, he was getting bullied, and
he
the
was being
pigeon,
bullied.
the guy took the pigeon.
The guy killed one of his pigeons.
Yeah. You know, I
caught
pigeons.
He was a much older, bigger boy, and Mike knocked him out.
Knocked him out. Yeah.
And that's when he was sort of discovered. He was living up in Catskill, New York.
Yeah. I caught a pigeon before, but you know, it's a little different. So yeah.
What was the name?
Oh, I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get to that. So yeah, I was tasked with taking care of the animals. We had horses, we had goats, we had chickens, we had turkeys, we had pigs, we had rabbits, and I would feed them. And I was like, they were my friends. They were my morning friends, my evening friends. I'd go hang out with them and stuff like that. What messed me up is when we started eating them. Because I never saw that coming for some reason. I just didn't see it coming. So one day I woke up, I went into the yard, and there were two guys standing there.
That's foul, right? I should have said that's foul.
Long story short, I was very angry with my grandmother because I felt like I was set up and I didn't know. And as like, the animals, I felt like they were looking at me like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, no, these are my buddies. So, but that was the island thing. So I had a friend named Kurt who wore the same blue soccer shorts every single day. One day we're hanging out and he's like, yo, let's catch pigeons. I said, all right, cool, let's catch pigeons. I'm still naive. So I'm like, yeah, we're gonna catch a pigeon. I'm gonna name the pigeon. I'm gonna raise the pigeon, try to train the pigeon and all that. So we got some chicken feed from my grandmother's backyard. We got a bucket, a stick, and some nylon string. We tied it up, ran the string all the way to the bushes where we couldn't be seen. Because in the islands, the pigeons, the birds, they're not like the pigeons you see in New York. The pigeons in New York are bold. Out there, you're not getting within 20 feet of anything that can fly. You know what I mean? They see, oh, we out. And I figured out why by the end of the day. So we set it up, sitting in the bushes, waiting. We had a couple prospects, but I don't know. It's like they figured something's off and they got out of there. So one pigeon landed. He was pecking around. And then he just went for the whole pile. Like he hit the jackpot. He pulled the string, bucket came down on him. He's like, yeah. I was like, yo, we got a pigeon. Picked it up, I'm holding the pigeon, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking of names. And then my friend Kirk says, yeah, let's eat it. And I was like, eat it? What do you mean, eat it? Like, nah, you're playing. He was like, all right. Went back to his yard. We put the bird in the pigeon coop that he had. He went inside. He boiled some water. Came back out, the hot pot. We reached in there. And I'm still thinking like, I spent some time here, I spent some time there, but I've never seen this before. Especially from a kid that was 9 years old like me. Reached in, dipped it in the water and started plucking out the feathers. And I left. I said, I don't want to play no more. I don't want to play no more. I'm out of here, man. I'm out of here.
Math and Bobby with the Dr. Doolittle story.
He sounds like he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, he definitely knew what he was doing. He did it a couple of times. He actually, I realized later, he used me to get the chicken feed from my grandmother so that he could catch it.
Yeah. Traumatized you, bro?
Huh?
Traumatized you a little bit?
No, it becomes life after a while. You know what I mean?
Name that pigeon Hot Wings.
What bothered me is that he did that because he didn't have no food. So my friend Kurt wore these same blue soccer shorts every day because he really didn't have no clothes. He didn't even have clothes to go to school. So like, after I realized that, like, I go in the crib and take plates for him and stuff like that, and bring him stuff to eat so he didn't have to kill our birds anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah. Right.
Well, the thing is, my daughter, they dug up this old story that my daughter had told. It had a lot of bad facts in it that I transported across state lines, et cetera. But the Fish and Wildlife, or the NIMS, the National Marine Fisheries Service, wrote me a letter almost immediately saying, we're investigating you for illegally taking a whale.
Whale trafficking?
For taking, you're not allowed to touch, under the law, you're not allowed to touch even a dead marine mammal. Right. But it's 30 years ago, and the statute of limitations, 25 years expired. But I wrote them a letter back saying, because I'm following, there's more whales now dying off the East Coast than ever before. And the strongest evidence is because of these wind farms that they're now building on the East Coast. They have them out here at the end of Long Island. And everywhere they're building them, the whales are just dying en masse. So typically you'd have a couple of whales die a year. In the last 2 years, 109 whales have died, including some that are critically endangered. There's only 360 right whales left in the Atlantic. And it's thought that the wind farms are going to exterminate them.
What are the wind farms? How are they?
They're giant turbines that they put off the coast. The blades on the turbines are 1,000 feet, so they're bigger than, they're about the size of the Eiffel Tower. These are huge, huge machines, and they have to pound them into the ground, and the whales echolocate and communicate to each other through noise, through over hundreds, even maybe thousands of miles. They can talk to each other. Right. Their ears are super sensitive. And when you do seismic activity, and when you do pound in the pilings, the whales become completely disoriented and they run into ships or they beach. NIMS has refused to investigate them because the Biden administration has given hundreds of billions of dollars to these companies to build these wind farms. The wind farms are terrible for the environment. And they're not even good for producing electricity. An onshore wind farm can produce electricity very efficiently, and I've helped build them. My brother is in that business. I've been a big advocate for them, but the offshore wind farms are terrible, and the electricity that they produce is 3 or 4 times what onshore wind is, and much more expensive. It's going to raise the cost of energy for everybody. They say they're doing it for climate, but it's actually harming the environment. The fish disappear. The commercial fishermen are now saying the cod are gone, the ground fish are gone. Right. NIMS itself predicted the collapse of the cod fishery because of these wind farms. And I've been opposing those wind farms. I'm an environmentalist. I believe in climate change. I believe it's existential, but this is not the way to deal with it. And it's also thousands of porpoises are also getting killed. So I wrote a letter back to NIMS, and NIMS is doing everything it can to protect the industry. So it won't do the proper testing, and it won't do, and it's not protecting the whales. In the Gulf, where they do oil drilling and they use all the same equipment, NIMS has a rule, and the agencies have a rule that if a whale dies within 50 miles of the activity, they have to shut down the activity. They've suspended that for these activities on the East Coast. The companies that are building them are the biggest contributors to the Democratic Party. It's BlackRock, it's Goldman Sachs, it's Morgan, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Citibank, et cetera. And so you have these billionaire companies that are making tens or hundreds of billions of dollars in free federal money. Nobody would build one of these things unless the government pays for it. Right. And they're making huge amounts of money, and they're slaughtering the whales on the East Coast. I wrote a letter back to NIMS saying, tell me what you're doing to investigate these. There's 18 environmental groups that have written them letters saying, please investigate it, please stop it. And they've refused because it's very, very important to the Biden administration. To me, I think we should do everything we can to protect the climate, but we shouldn't make the environment worse. And, these are agencies that are, their primary job is protecting these species, and they're letting them go extinct. And there's a really good possibility that the right whale, which is the most important whale, because that, iconically, those with the whale and sperm whales as well, which are critically endangered, are all endangered by this activity. So, they're coming after me because clearly for political reasons. They did it a week after I endorsed Trump. That's when they sent me this letter and opened this investigation on me for something that happened 30 years ago.
Wow. Bobby, speaking of endorsing Trump, the last time you was here, you was running for president, and then something happened where you end up aligning yourself with Trump.
Yeah, you come from a long list of Democrats, as far as family members, and what was your reason for switching parties?
Yeah, I like grew up the center of the Democratic Party. So my family came over here in 1848 during the potato famine, when the potato famine in Ireland was wiping out the Irish population. People were eating grass. A million people died. And then a large part of the population immigrated to the United States. My grandparents on both sides came over that year in 1848. They landed in Boston, and they had no money, they had no jobs, they had no homes, and it was the Democratic Party that met them on the dock and took care of them. So our family, ever since then, has been immersed in the Democratic Party. It was the party of the poor, the party of working people, party of labor unions, a party that protected vulnerable populations. And my great-grandfather was Honey Fitz, who was the first Irish Catholic mayor of Boston. On the other side, on the Kennedy side of the family, my great-grandfather was Patrick Kennedy, who was a state legislature Democrat and a boss of the Democratic Party in Boston. And their kids were all Democratic leaders. My uncle John Kennedy was the first Irish Catholic president of the United States. My father was Attorney General, Senate. He was assassinated running for president of the Democratic Party. My uncle Ted Kennedy was I think the second longest serving senator in the United States Senate. 50 years he was in the Senate. And I worked on, I was at almost every Democratic convention since 1960. I was at the center of the Democratic Party. I participated in hundreds of elections. Beginning with my uncle's election in 1960, I ran my Uncle Teddy's presidential campaign in the southern states. And I could not imagine that I'd ever leave the Democratic Party. I run for president, and as a Democrat, just like my father did, against a sitting U.S. president, mainly because I was concerned about the war, and I was concerned about the censorship that was now, and the surveillance that was emerging now. And I'm very worried about my country and about the future of democracy, and that's what prompted me to run. And also because I'm concerned about health of children and the deteriorating, this explosion of chronic disease in our kids. When my uncle was president, 6% of American children had chronic disease, 60% do today. It's no country in the world is as sick as our country. And as our children are getting wiped out, 77% of American kids are ineligible for military service because they're either obese or they have chronic disease diagnosis. And it's now, when my uncle was president, 0 was spent annually on treating chronic disease. Today it's $4.3 trillion. It's 5 times our military budget. It is going to bankrupt our country. Our kids, the sickest kids in the world. The reason we had the highest, during COVID, we had 16% of the COVID deaths were here in the United States. We only have 4.2% of the world's population. And the people who were dying were all sick from chronic disease. The CDC said that the average American who died from COVID had 3.8 chronic diseases. The reason we did so bad is we have chronic disease like nobody else in the world has. Fertility is dropping in our children. Teens today have 50% of the testosterone and 50% of the sperm count as kids did a generation ago. Girls now hit puberty at 8 years old in our country, so as young as 8. The average is 10 to 13. 70 years ago, it was 6 years older. Our kids are hitting puberty younger than any children in the world. So our fertility is dropping, the kids are fatter, the depression, the mental illness that is now exploding in our country is all related to chronic disease and to our food, to poison food.
How do you connect this to the Democratic Party?
Right, so those are the reasons I ran.
Right.
I ran in the Democratic Party. But then my father ran against the sitting president as well, running against a war. And I thought, we have a primary process. If I lose the primaries, I will continue to be part of the Democratic Party. But then they blocked me. They started canceling the primaries. The Democratic Party adopted 60 rules to prevent me from running. Even if I won the primaries, I could not win the nomination. So, for example, one of the rules they adopted was that any candidate, I was already campaigning in New Hampshire and doing really well. What they adopted a rule that said that anybody who campaigns in the state of New Hampshire, who sets foot into the state of New Hampshire, that all of the delegates that they win will go to the president. Oh, it was just fixed. Right. And they started canceling primaries so that nobody could win except for President Biden. And, you know, I was saying, let's debate. If President Biden had stepped out and debated me, people would have seen back then his disabilities, and they've been able to have a democratic process. That's not what happened. So I then, when I was the last one on my campaign to say, okay, I got to leave this party because they're not going to let me win, and they've rigged it. So I switched to independent, and I campaigned as an independent. From the beginning, my supporters mainly were Trump supporters. So 57% of the people who were supporting me said that if I left the race, they would vote for Trump. So I was harming Trump. I wasn't harming the Democrats. But Trump was always very civil to me, and he did nothing to stop me from participating. But the Democrats came after me. I wasn't allowed to go on TV, which is, you know, the networks that are controlled by the Democratic Party, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, they wouldn't let me on for even any kind of interview. When Ross Perot ran in 1992, he was only running for 10 months, but he had 34 interviews on those networks. I only got 2 live interviews the whole time, 18 months that I was running. And then they were spending tens of millions of dollars. They wouldn't give me Secret Service protection, even though there were incredible threats on my life, like real threats, people coming with guns, with, you know, fake federal ID, trying to get at me at you know, in one case, I had 4 break-ins in my house. I had one guy who made it to the 2nd floor of my home when my family was home. And we gave a 68-page report to the Secret Service saying...
What happened in that ordeal?
In those cases...
Were you in the house?
I was not home. My wife was home. She one day was doing her podcast, and she saw a guy come over the fence. And I was paying my own security. It was costing us about $1 million a month. Because when they travel with you, you know, you have to buy hotels for everybody, and every other candidate gets Secret Service protection. Right. But at the White House, President Biden made the decision to deny me Secret Service protection. Right. So because they wanted to bankrupt me, they wanted to hurt my campaign. They were paying tens of millions of dollars to sue me to keep me off the ballot in all the different states. And I had to go get on the ballot. I couldn't raise the kind of money they were raising because they wrote the rules so that parties, if you're Republican or Democrat, you can get $750,000 per person. You can go, there's no, you know, the maximum limit is somewhere around 750,000. So they could go to big donors and get all the money. My maximum was 6,600, less than 1/10 of what they could. So I could find people who wanted to give me money, but they were legally not allowed to. So my ability to fundraise was much less, and they were trying to bankrupt me. And they were bankrupting me by suing me in every state. And they were bankrupting me by denying me Secret Service protection. Now, when my dad ran in 1968, candidates were not entitled to Secret Service protection until you got the nomination. So after the convention, my dad was assassinated in June 5th, 1968. And at that point, the White House, Lyndon Johnson, who he was running against, provided Secret Service protection for all the other candidates, including George Wallace, George McGovern, Hubert Humphrey. All the other candidates who were running got Secret Service protection.
Right.
And Congress passed a law saying that if you meet certain metrics, you are entitled to Secret Service protection 120 days out. But the president can allow people before that, if they're credible candidates and if there's threats against them, to have Secret Service protection. So, for example, Jesse Jackson got full Secret Service protection 300 days out. Shirley Chisholm got full Secret Service protection. Gary Hart, Obama got Secret Service protection more than a year out. My uncle got Secret Service protection, Ted Kennedy, 550 days out by a president who hated him. But at that time, it was considered, that's what you do. Right. We're America. Right. You don't weaponize the federal agencies to go after your political opponents. But what they did is they weaponized the Secret Service. I'm the first candidate in history to request Secret Service protection and be denied. They denied it to me 6 times. The first time. It's never happened before. Oh, but they were taking all these steps. But then I saw that I saw what the Democratic Party was changing, and that it had changed dramatically. It now became the party of war. So the Republicans, weirdly, are now the party of peace. They're trying to end the Ukraine war, which is a war we should have never gotten into. Right. They became the party, the Democratic Party I grew up with, it was the party of free speech that protected civil rights, constitutional rights, the Bill of Rights, the U.S. Constitution, including the First Amendment, freedom of speech. Without that amendment, without freedom of speech, you have no other freedoms, because a government that can silence its opponents has license for every atrocity. Right. Democrats always knew that. My father was in love with the First Amendment. My uncle, they thought we should all have debate, conversations. My uncle won the campaign because of the debates, and the Democratic Party canceled the debates. And they also became, they were the party of tolerance. They became very intolerant, and people don't like Trump, and I understand that. But the 80 million Americans voted for him. And if we just become polarized and start hating each other, our country is through. Mm-hmm. So, and then the Democratic Party became the party of the rich. So they're big pharma, big tech, big ag, big food, the military-industrial complex, and Wall Street. Those are their donors, and they are, and the Democratic Party represents their interest. Mm. The Republican Party has become the party of working people, of the poor. At the Republican National Convention, you had Sean O'Brien, who's the head of the Teamsters Union, the biggest union in this country, talking. This never happened before. At the Democratic Convention, right? But Kamala gave this incredible speech that was all about war and belligerence and world domination. And right before her, the person who spoke immediately before her was Leon Panetta, the head of the CIA. This has never happened. The Democrats were always suspicious of the CIA. Right. And military generals talking. You had endorsements like Dick Cheney and John Bolton, 250 CIA agents who endorsed the Democratic Party.
Is there a correlation?
The neocons, which are this group, that has always been Republican, right-wing Republican, Dick Cheney and John Bolton. They're the ones that gave us the Patriot Act, the surveillance state, the national security state, the torture, the extraordinary renditions, all these things that happened after 9/11. And they gave us the Iraq War, which is the worst foreign policy catastrophe in American history. Dick Cheney still thinks that was a good idea. He thinks the Patriot Act is a good idea. He thinks censorship is a good idea. And he endorsed Kamala Harris, not because he has changed, but because the Democratic Party has changed. It's become now the party of the neocons. For me, it was absolutely heartbreaking. My wife, at the beginning of the campaign, said, I can't be married to you if you support Dick Cheney. And I knew that from the beginning. I mean, if you support Donald Trump at the beginning, but by the end of the campaign, Trump called me the night that 3 hours after he got shot at Butler. And he said, I want to talk to you. And I went and met with him in Minneapolis. And he said, the issues that you're concerned with, I will end the war on day one. I will end it on day one. He said, we should be friends with the world. And this is what my uncle said. My uncle, President Kennedy, said the primary job of a president of the United States was to keep the country out of war. He didn't want little children in Africa and Asia and Latin America, when they heard about the United States, to think of a man with a gun. He wanted them to think of a Peace Corps volunteer. He wanted them to think of the Kennedy Milk Program, which gave nutrition to tens of millions of kids around the world who were hungry. He wanted them to think of USAID and the Alliance for Progress, which were the programs he created to give aid directly to the poor in foreign countries rather than to give it to the military juntas and the oligarchs, which was the target of all of our aid before that. Right. And so this was what the Democratic Party believed in. And Trump said to me, those are the things I believe in now. I want to solve the health crisis for our kids. I want to make America healthy again. I want to end the censorship. I want to end the surveillance. I want to have I want prosperity for the working class. In 2020, when I was a kid, the Republicans owned all the money in this country, and the Democrats had union people and working people. In 2020, roughly half the country voted for Biden, and roughly half voted for Trump. Half that voted for Biden own 70% of the wealth. So they have all the billionaires. The half that voted for Trump own 30% of the wealth. So it's the Republican Party has now become the party of the poor. You've had this extraordinary inversion, and most Democrats do not realize this yet. They still think the Democratic Party has all of these traditional values that I grew up with and that I loved. But it's now become the opposite of that. And
when you see former heads of the CIA speaking with the Democrats, did that disturb you?
Yeah, I mean, you and I talked the last time about the assassinations of my uncle, which was clearly a CIA project, and my father, which was almost certainly a CIA project.
I figured that was very alarming.
That's part of it, but also, the CIA traditionally was forbidden from spying on Americans or propagandizing us, and and today that rule no longer applies. So the CIA is now doing in this country what it has done in countries all over the world, which is which is mischief, fixing elections and fixing the press to propagandize Americans rather than foreigners. That was always legal for them to do that. Right. They're now doing it here in this country, and it's very alarming to me because, Matt, we're living in a time right now where you're seeing the emergence of these new technologies that are potentially surveillance technologies, AI, which can warp our perception of the world, change the way we look at the world, manipulate us in ways that we don't even understand. Yeah. That can manipulate truth and twist it. Facial recognition technologies, which are all over the place. Low-level satellite. We all carrying GPS on us right now. Yeah, on our phones, our watches, our cars. Government has the ability to know where we are every moment of the day. That should scare people. They also can listen to us. We have Siri and Alexas in our homes. We think it's working for us.
No.
It's not. It's working for Bill Gates. Every time you call. I mean, I remember 3 years ago, I was with my wife lying in bed at night and saying, we need a new mattress. Mm-hmm. The next morning, we both got 3 mattress ads on our cell phones, right? And that was when I really said, oh my God, these things are listening to it. And of course, we all know this now, right? Right. But that information, of course, is being harvested for free by large corporations, then monetized in order to turn us into, permanent consumers and consumer slaves to them. But it's also all being stored and compiled by government agencies. And, you know, Americans always believed the government should not be spying on them. That was very dangerous. That was a feature of totalitarianism. And then the Democrats openly began endorsing censorship. So I have an injunction right now against the Biden administration for censoring me. And it's a federal court injunction that's been repeatedly upheld. And there's a 155-page decision by that judge, a federal judge called Judge Terry Doty. And he details, now we know from discovery and from the Twitter files and from all of these documents that have been released, 37 hours after he took the oath of office, swearing to uphold the Constitution of the United States, President Biden's White House began telling the social media sites, you have to censor speech, dangerous speech, misinformation, disinformation from my political opponents. Facebook, we have all their emails now. The executive of Facebook began talking to each other saying, this is illegal. You have the White House ordering us to censor political opponents of the president. And they said, and you know, I got as a result of that order by the president, they took down my Instagram account. Right? YouTube is going to censor you if I talk about certain subjects on this.
I know.
Right? So, and the White House told them to do that. That was an order from the White House to YouTube. So we're all now being affected by that. And the Facebook pushed back on my Instagram. They said they took it down for misinformation, but Facebook was saying, you know, there's actually everything he wrote was true. They couldn't point to a single post that I did that was factually incorrect. Everything I put up, I was very careful, was cited or sourced to a peer-reviewed publication or government database. And they had to make a new word up, which was called malinformation, which is information that is factually true, but it is nevertheless inconvenient to the government.
Malinformation.
Malinformation. So they were censoring me for misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. But the only thing they really had on me was malinformation because they didn't have any factually incorrect statements. And the Facebook people were talking to each other saying, this is not right, but we got to do it because the White House, you know, is going to take away our immunity from liability. And so I got censored, many other people got censored. People who were talking about medical policies, people who were critical of them, doctors, scientists,
I'll be honest with you. I was doing a reaction to the presidential debate. And I was voicing, you know, my concerns. And, you know, when you go live on YouTube, hopefully this doesn't get me shut down. Hopefully, right? When you go live on YouTube, you can see the amount of people that's there watching the live.
Yeah.
In a split second, it went to 0.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay,
yeah,
that's
I think you should even stop talking about this now.
Yeah.
Because I think they will take you down for it. And
wow.
you know, your livelihood depends on it.
Right.
And that's the point. If they can ruin your livelihood, you know, how are you going to, you know, here's what they do in China. China, your face is your credit card. So there's facial recognition everywhere. They know where you are 24 hours a day. Everybody has a social credit score. And if your score drops below, if you hang out with people who have bad credit scores, your credit score drops. If you are wearing
like something out of Black Mirror.
Yeah, if you're Black Mirror.
Yeah.
If you're like on a, let's say on a day when they order everybody to wear masks and you're seen through facial recognition on the street with your mask below the nose, your social credit score will drop. If your social credit score stops below a certain number and you're penalized, your credit cards, which is your face, no longer work anywhere except in grocery stores within a certain radius of your house. So you can still feed yourself, but you can't get gas for your car. You can't travel. You can't leave. And these kind of rules are now being adopted across Europe. In Latin America, Brazil this week banned Twitter. And there's censorship now all across Europe. There is no free speech left in Europe. So we don't want that to happen in the United States. And, you know, Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton and Tim Walz all made statements in the last 2 weeks saying that essentially that the First Amendment is a privilege, it's not a right. That the government has a right to censor misinformation or disinformation.
Where did they say that?
They said it publicly, and you can go look at it. You know, it's on like 20 memes right now, all three of them saying it.
They said it wasn't a right?
Well, they said, I think Kamala actually, or maybe Tim Walz said there's no protection in the, Kamala used the word, it's a privilege. It's a, you know, free speech is a privilege. Mm-hmm. So, and they all said, you know, the government is has a duty to censor misinformation or disinformation. Why is that? If the government is now the arbiter, that it's determining what is misinformation or disinformation, it's not actually looking at the facts. It's looking at things that are critical of them. And that you know, no government in history has ever wanted to censor people for telling lies. They censor people for telling the truth. That's what they don't want to hear. And if we give our government the power to determine what's true or not true, the things they're going to say are not true are things that are critical of them. You know, that's the danger in letting the government decide what is misinformation or disinformation. During the last few years, you've seen the government lies to us all the time. That's misinformation, but nobody is censoring them, right?
So, I think it's an argument about politics, right? And I feel like as I listen to you, or at least from, you know, my experience, is that I don't believe politicians when they speak. I believe everybody has an agenda. But when we ask the question, we started with, why did you decide to endorse Trump, right? And I want to kind of zero in on that because I would like to know what that decision was based on, like without hearing all the political rhetoric around it.
Three things. One is his opposition to war, which he's been very open about. Two is his opposition to censorship. Now, why does Donald Trump oppose to censorship? I would say the reason for that is because he has been very heavily censored. So he's very sensitized to it. And he sees how...
but we've seen what has happened.
Sorry. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. I'm sorry. Go on. Go ahead. No, I was just thinking about how harmful some of the things that he has said.
That Trump has?
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Right? If we go back to the insurrection. So I just want to know how you feel about those type of things, right? And endorsing him, right? Is that a cosign of the things that he has said? Because when you decided to drop out of the race, right? And I have a follow-up to that. When you decided to drop out of the race and endorse Trump, I guess my first question is, will your name still be on the ballots in certain states? And if that is the case, what states and why? And what is the strategy with that?
Okay, so let me answer your first question first and then that one. When I met with President Trump, I said, you know, I'm not going to drop out of the race. I'm not terminating my candidacy. But like in Europe, when you often have unification between two parties who decide to run together, because that's the only way they're going to win, because they have multiple parties there. So they usually build coalitions and then they run together. What I said to Trump is that that's what I want to do. I'm not going to co-sign your issues. I'm going to run because of these three issues, and I'm going to support your positions on those. And all the other issues that you may have that I don't like, I'm going to maintain my ability to criticize you publicly for them. And he agreed to that, and I've continued to do that, and he does it with me too. So it's not like an all-out endorsement of me saying, you know, everything that he says I'm going to co-sign. That's not what it is. It's where our parties are now unified. I'm supporting him because he's better on these 3 issues, which are critical to me, than the Democrats are, and that is what my endorsement means.
Okay. And so the second part of the question being about whether your name is going to be on the ballot. Is your name still going to be on the ballot?
Here's the thing. Here's
who
the
determines what states? You know, because we're getting into a very nuanced conversation where we're talking about things that I know I can speak for myself. I don't have the background on. I haven't done the research. I can't tell you about the whales and the percentages of how much is this and that. So these things I'm asking for clarity on, right? What is the, what is the reason that if you have dropped out of the race, you would still be on the ballot?
Here's the irony, okay? The Democratic Party was suing me in, I don't know how many, probably 20 states, to keep me off the ballot. As soon as I endorsed Trump, I said, I'm going to remove myself. I'm going to continue to run in the red states and blue states where it doesn't matter. I'm going to take myself off the ballot in the battleground states where I could turn it toward Kamala.
Right.
If I stay on, she's much more likely to win. Mm-hmm. And the Democratic Party, which had been suing me to keep me off the ballot in those states, overnight pivoted and began suing me to keep me on the ballot in those states. And that's what's happening now. I'm being sued in those states to keep me on the ballot. And I won almost all the suits that tried to keep me off the ballot. A couple of them, they're succeeding in keeping me on the ballot. For example, in Michigan, I tried to get off the ballot and the courts agreed with them because they said it was too late and I'm going to be on the ballot. And it usually depends if you have a Democratic judge or a Republican judge. That's not the way the United States is supposed to work, but that's the way that it does actually work.
Bobby, let me ask you a question. Project 2025. I hear Kamala and Tim Walz talk about it a lot. Is that a real thing?
Here's what Trump said. You guys know what Project 2025 is?
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Here's what Trump said. I didn't even ask him about that, but he said to me, they're trying to pin me with Project 2025. He said, I never even heard of Project 2025. And he said that,
Why the face?
He said that was written by a right-wing asshole. And then he said to me, there are left-wing assholes and there are right-wing assholes. And it was a right-wing asshole that wrote that. That was his quote. President Trump, to me, in 2016 to 2020, I fought everything he did. He appointed people to, he appointed an oil industry lobbyist, Ryan Zinke, to run Interior Department, a coal industry lobbyist to run the EPA, a pharmaceutical industry lobbyist to run the Health and Human Services, a telecom lobbyist to run the Federal Communications Decision, and so on. And these were all people who were taking those agencies and turning them predatory against the American public. I was suing him and I was fighting him, publicly criticizing him. He said to me when we met, he said, the last time I came into office in 2016, I had no idea how to govern. And he said, we didn't even expect to win. Suddenly we won. And you have now 2 months to figure out who, he's got 14,000 appointments to make. He said, I was surrounded by business people and lobbyists who said, you got to appoint this guy, this guy, this guy. And he said, I listened to him and I did it. He said they were a bunch of bad people. And he said, we're not going to do that this time. We're going to do something different. And he's interested in his legacy. And he wants his legacy to be the president who ended the wars, who brought the money home to rebuild the middle class in this country, who ended the censorship, who ended the power of the CIA over the American people, and who made America healthy again. For me, and then people said to me, you shouldn't trust him because he lies about everything. He'll tell you anything. He's a real estate guy. He'll say anything and then he'll do what he wants. They said, you got to get a written contract with him. And you can't do that, right? It's illegal for one thing. But what President Trump did, as soon as I did that endorsement, he started keeping his word on everything. He said to me, I want you to be on my transition team. And I asked him, I said, I think it would be good if Tulsi Gabbard were on it too, because she's aligned with me on many of these issues. I don't want to be alone on that team. The transition team is the team that chooses those 14,000 people, that chooses the policies for his administration. He asked me to be on it. I didn't tell him I wanted to be on it. And he has kept his word on that. We are on that team and we're working on those appointments now. We're providing them lists, et cetera. It's no guarantee it's all going to happen, but everything that he's told me, he's kept his word. And then every speech he gives now, he talks about my 3 issues. He talks about ending the war, ending the censorship, and making America healthy again. And these have become the center of his platform. Before that, the platform was the economy and the border. And that pretty much was it. That's what they wanted to talk about. Now they're talking about children's health. They're talking about ending censorship. They're talking about ending the war and, the economy and the border.
Where is he talking about these things?
Everywhere he goes.
Okay.
Because
I just hear a lot, and I'm hearing they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. This is what I'm hearing from him. So where is he talking about these issues that, are important to you? Because I'm not hearing that.
You're not hearing it.
You're
not hearing it because you watch MSNBC and CNN and
You don't know what I watch.
Okay.
I watch everything and I Google everything. So where is he saying these things? And how do we know that these are the issues that are really important to him if there's been a history of misrepresentation and lies?
Yeah.
Because we're talking about a campaign and an election. Of course he's going to say what you want to hear.
So
he doesn't have to,
the same respect. Does Kamala say the same things?
We're talking about one specific candidate. Keep it here.
Well, no. We're not gonna say he's a politician. He's gonna say this, and then we're gonna leave the other side out of that. The other side is politics,
bro.
Right?
We're not done talking here, and we haven't even answered that question. You're already moving over to the other candidate. I'd like to hear the response on this candidate.
That was my question on that candidate. That's it. And then
well, go look at the day that I endorsed him. And he invited me onto the stage, 18,000 people. And those are the subjects that he talked about. And he got what he said was the biggest applause that he had ever heard from a crowd. Since then, at virtually every rally he gives, he says the same thing. And I'm doing a series of rallies with him that are specifically about children's health and ending the war. So I see him virtually every day saying things, talking about the issues that I care about. And, that's his contract. He's telling the American people, this is what I'm going to do. He's telling his supporters, and they love it. It's become a concern. It's changed the whole debate about these issues across the Republican Party. And
is it safe to say that if Donald Trump becomes president, then we also gain your influence in picking the people that's going to help run the country?
Picking the people, and I will be part of the administration. Oh, and there was nobody like me or Tulsi Gabbard in the last administration. He has people now, who are going to be working with him, like Elon Musk. People are all traditionally from the left who are working for him, with him in this administration.
Okay. Can I address the elephant in the room? There's certain people in here that are confused by your decision, but they look at the association between you and Trump, and they have their own personal feelings. Not saying everything is factual. They have their own personal feelings about certain things, and I think if y'all got questions and y'all want to ask, let them fly.
Just ask the question.
Like Mac, you believe he's a racist. You have someone who's been around him who knows all this stuff better than we do.
His experience.
Why don't you ask him about it?
That's where you went wrong. He knows this stuff better than we do. His experience won't convince me that Trump is not a racist.
That won't happen.
I'm confused as what did what I'm confused at what made you, what brought you to that decision.
What brought me? Racists love him.
What does that have to?
Has everything to do. If you.
So let me get this straight. If child molesters just decided that you were their champion, does that mean that
child molesters aren't running for president?
I'm confused about that.
Child molesters aren't running for president. He is.
You said racist.
You did that last time.
Where are the racists that you hang with that love him all of a sudden?
No, I watched him at his rallies. Let
me answer.
You know who's at these rallies?
I watched them at his rallies.
You can see who's
I see the flag they're waving at his rallies.
Well, I want to say this because because you can't identify it like that, because when it comes to racism, you have overt racism and you have covert racism.
Okay.
I believe in the Democratic Party, they not as overt as the people who you describing at the Trump rally.
Okay.
Right? So we can't go by racism because you can't really you can't really identify.
You don't want to go by racism, and I respect that. And I get that.
What Biden did with the crime bill
Let
was
me finish.
racist.
I see, and that's Biden's not running for president. I don't want to talk about what Biden did.
It's
Biden's
his party. It's his party.
Okay. And this is
political parties aside. At the end of the day, right?
So you could be the vice president of someone who does something racist.
She can't write the policies that you're talking about.
If you have people at your rallies that's racist, that makes you racist. You could be the vice president and not be racist if you're hanging with her. Like, how does that make sense?
I don't think he's racist. And he's kicking it with Trump. And I would never accuse him of being racist because I don't believe he is one. Okay. See how easy that works? See, that's how that goes.
That's not how that goes.
It is how it goes.
What you said earlier is not how that goes.
It is how it goes.
No,
I believe that if you're if racists somehow, if the racist organizations in this country, including a couple of new ones that popped up on your watch, and somehow they're all galvanized and they all love you to death, then you're saying something specifically to them that they're hearing.
Hold on, wait.
Can I finish the sentence?
Yeah.
You're saying something specifically that they're hearing, that they're keying in on, that I may not hear. That him is a non-racist. Let me finish.
What is this
that him is a non-hit.
That you believe is being heard.
You've never heard the phrase racist dog whistle? You've never heard that?
See, he said...
Let him answer. Like, if we're going to really dance this dance, you got to let the sentences come all the way out. I'm not stopping anybody from talking.
But you have to understand
everything that you're saying is hypothetical.
No, hold on. No, Matt.
No, there's nothing hypothetical about the Confederate flag.
I see racist there, so I believe that he's racist. Oh, you ever heard of the racist dog whistle? None of this stuff is stuff that I can look at and be like, whoa, look at this racism.
That's not hypothetical.
Look, Matt,
okay, you know what? I'll fix it all right now. You ready? I don't think he's racist. I believe racists think he's racist. How's that for you?
I mean, that's what you said. But let me ask you a question.
That make you feel better?
Let me ask you a question, Mac.
Ask me a question.
I believe racists think you're racist.
Let me
you know they don't, but you know they don't.
Let me ask
you know they don't. See, you can't say that with a straight face.
Mac, let me ask you a question.
When I'm talking, I'm absolutely straight face. I'm listening. I'm listening.
Bobby got this initiative called Make America Healthy Again, right? So you have different types of racism. You have environmental racism, which Bobby spoke about.
We talked about that last time he was here.
Right.
We have racism when it comes to our food, right?
Sure.
Right? And he's saying that Trump wants to address those issues.
You ready for my answer? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't believe Trump.
Right.
Cool. Like we can keep dancing this dance back and forth. I don't believe him.
Why
I don't believe the man who ran Trump University and conned a bunch of people out of money, that now all of a sudden he's telling the truth. I don't believe him. It's just that simple. I believe his intentions are exactly what they say they are. When he walked in here last time, I believed it. When he walked out of here, I believed it. Sitting here right now, I think he believes he's doing the right thing. You dig? I think he thinks he's doing the right thing. I don't think he has malicious intent. But I believe he's aligned himself with somebody who is out for themselves and who is not being 100% honest with him. That's what I believe. Now, does that make him a bad person? No. Does that make him a racist? No. Does that make the Democratic Party a bunch of angels with halos? Fuck no. Well, you've been cursing. Fuck no. Fuck no, I don't think that. Like, I don't understand this idea that because I think Kamala will do a better job, that somehow I think she's perfect or there's nothing to fix on that side. I don't agree with all the stuff that she says.
This is why I started you're not gonna let me finish? Personal feelings.
You're not gonna let me No, it's not personal feelings. My ass. The policies. It's not. I don't agree with all of her policies.
None of the things that you're saying is supported by a fact, an incident, a date.
That I don't agree with all of Kamala's policies is not supported by what fact do you need from that?
I'm saying the derogatory statements that you're saying.
Which ones?
About Trump.
Because I got a lot of them.
You are not.
Trump University is a real thing. Let me look that up. No, because you cut me off. Okay. Trump University is a real thing. Whether you ignored it or not, it's still real. What does that have to do with? Okay, all right. Again, where are the facts? Where's the documentation? Where's something that we can look at and say, you know what, Mec, you may be correct. You're repeating something. Trump
University. What is Trump? Why don't you break down the whole thing and so that we
Bobby, can we get Trump in the barbershop?
No, not Mecca. And then for an administration that we're dealing with now, you can't give me a selling point on how they're fixing things.
We haven't gotten into any of those things, because the second I say something negative about Trump, you bring up something negative about her. Here's the thing.
My girl does that.
Here's the thing. I got
she does. She does do that.
Tons of negative things.
She tells me that it's not going to work. The conversation is not going to work out ahead of time.
I have tons of negative things to say about her and the party. Tons. But when I bring that stuff up, you don't ask me to prove it. Because you already, no, you don't. No, you never have.
And I tell people, look up policies.
That's never what
choose who you're going to vote for based on the policies. There's so much propaganda about their personalities, their characters, all this stuff. Like,
because I think character counts, man. I think character counts. I think character should really count for something.
Character can be twisted. It can be painted a certain way.
No shit.
I could take a clip of me saying, there are fine people on both sides, and make people believe that that Trump just called Ku Klux Klan members and neo-Nazis fine people.
Bro.
But if you watch the whole speech, you'll see that he said, I'm not talking about these people. They need to be condemned. But so many people will run with that and be like, remember Charleston? And I see his opponents saying the same thing when you could just watch the whole clip. So it can be flipped. It can definitely be flipped, bro.
Okay.
We see how important these conversations are. Like, these are the conversations that we really need to have in our communities. You know what I'm saying? We really need to have these conversations.
Well, that's what we're doing now.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing now. My opinion on any of this hasn't changed. And for the record, I never claimed to be a political scholar. Like I've never claimed that this is the kind of research I do every day, all day.
I mean, you don't have to, but you got to vote.
Nah, you kind of do if you're going to speak to this extent.
Or have facts to support certain statements that you make. I want to go back to something that you said, Bobby, when you talked about Trump and your decision to endorse him. You said there were 3 important issues for you. And those issues were,
sickness,
war, censorship, and kids.
Yeah.
Health.
For women who are voting and they have important issues to them, reproductive rights. Where do you stand on that? And where does Trump stand on that since you endorsed him? I know there's been a lot of conversations about, or a lot of changes made in his stance. So today, as we approach the election in the next less than 60 days, where do you guys stand on reproductive rights and women's rights?
Yeah, and that's a really critical issue. Can I sort of make a comment on the argument that you had, which I think is a really legitimate argument, and I think everybody was saying things that were smart. And I think that it's very hard to look into somebody's head and say, they are racist, and what does that mean? Does it mean they hate black people? Does it mean they want to keep black people down? And what's going on in his head, people's head? I think it's really hard to make that determination. You judge people by what they do, and President Trump has done certain things that I think would put doubt in the minds of black Americans that he is on their side. I think two of those things have not been mentioned. I think the most alarming one was the ad that he took out against the Central Park kids.
The exonerated, yeah.
Right, and saying they should be given
They weren't exonerated at that time.
I was saying
that's what they're called, the exonerated five.
Yeah, the exonerated. I'm saying that they should be executed. And then the other one was that, you know, in the sort of deep history as a real estate guy working for his dad, they were definitely using racial criteria to judge who should get an apartment in their housing complex. And so I think that that is something that legitimately Black Americans can look at and say, that's a very bad sign for us. I think ultimately it's really what you said is right, that for me right now is that this election where that probably what is happening in his head and how he views the world is probably a little less important, because you really have to judge him against his opponent, because they're two people who are, you know, flawed like we all are. Right. And you have to say which one would lead this country, which one is going to have policies that are going to be best for Black Americans, whatever they feel. And that is where I come down on this. And, you know, I think that Kamala has her own problems. Kamala had a very, very bad record on Black Americans. She's, if you look at the way people are living in California now, I live in California. We have half the homeless people in the country in that state because of policies she's endorsed. San Francisco, which was to me the most beautiful city in this country, is now just a hellhole, a literal hellhole. You have 1 million people leaving the state every year. They've run out of U-Hauls to get people out. It has the worst education system in the country. It's 49th in terms of child outcomes. The only state worse than them is Mississippi. And Kamala herself had this very sketchy record as Attorney General, where she defied, you know, the Supreme Court of the United States declared that the prisons in California were overcrowded unconstitutionally, that the conditions there constituted cruel and unusual punishment, and ordered Kamala to release 5,000 prisoners, almost all of them Black, accused of nonviolent drug offenses. She refused again and again and again, defied that order, saying publicly, we need them for fire suppression. Oh, we need them to go work on the fire lines, and we can't afford to release them from jail. So that's a kind of, I guess you could compare that to slavery, that, you know, there are people who are unconstitutionally held, and she needs them because she needs them to work on work gangs. That's not a good thing. There's a video that came out this week that's gone absolutely viral. And it is the story of a woman named Sherry Peoples, this extraordinary Black lady who is a healthcare worker. And Kamala Harris made a declaration that the state of California was losing one. You can look this up, Sherry Peoples, C-H-E-R-I, and then People. Her daughter had sickle cell anemia and was in the hospital. She was in the hospital for 60 days, and she missed 60 days of school. Kamala Harris implemented a policy. She found out that there was a lot of truancy in California, and that the state was losing $1.8 billion a year in federal funds because of truancy. She said publicly, and you can look at this film, I want that money. So I'm going to do something that nobody else has done. I'm going to start putting parents in prison who have truant kids. This was the first person that she put in. She sent the police to Sherry Peoples' house. Sherry's daughter, who graduated from high school, despite losing all that, she was in agony from sickle cell anemia. 60 days in the hospital. Because she was hospitalized, she didn't get to school. And she ended up graduating high school with a 3.8 GPA, so she was not slacking. And but Kamala Harris sent police to her house and handcuffed the mother and jailed her. And she lost her job, she lost her home, and she had to live in hotels thereafter. And the police, when they arrested her, she said to them, you can see it on the tape, she said, are you really going to handcuff me? She was wearing her pajamas. She was dragged out of bed. She was handcuffed behind her back. The police said, if you want to complain, complain to Kamala Harris. And they put her in prison. And, you know, all these other mothers, you know, many of them black, were arrested and put in jail. And, you know, and I think it indicates that she's not somebody who's looking at the human consequences of some of her policies, and specifically the consequences that harm black people. You can also give many examples of Trump pardoning people who were in jail, most of them black, because they were in jail for wrongly, as you know, many black people in this country are wrongly in prison. You can find compassion on both sides, and you can find policies on both sides that are harmful to black people. And to me, you know, I think one of those policies is reproductive rights. He's not as good on reproductive rights as Kamala. His position on reproductive rights is that the baby should be protected after it's viable, but that it should be decided by the states, that it should go back to the states. And what we've seen now that it's in the states is there's some bad results, like Texas, probably the worst. But even the red states, none of them are banning it altogether. They're making it more difficult, but none of them are banning it altogether. Most of them are deciding when viability is, when that baby would be viable outside of the womb, and they have different dates. Well, that's reproductive rights, but ultimately, I think the worst threat to African Americans in this country, one of them is the school-to-prison pipeline, but the much worse threat is their health. Is that, you know, that Black Americans, after American Indians, are the fattest, most obese, most diabetic, and most plagued by chronic disease. And they're living in food deserts. It would be very, very difficult for anybody in this neighborhood to get healthy food. They're being systematically poisoned. And, you know, we had the highest death rate in COVID, but Black Americans, after Indians, had the highest death rate in the world. Black Americans were dying during COVID at a rate of 3,000 per million population. In Haiti, which is the poorest country in the hemisphere, they were dying at 14 per million population because they're not being poisoned. And we need to end that, and the Democrats aren't going to do it.
So you believe
in terms
Trump
of, let me make one other point. In terms of the economy, which disproportionately impacts when the economy goes south, it disproportionately impacts blacks. During the Trump years, we had a 7% inflation. Now we have 20%. The groceries have gone up. The gas has gone up. The housing costs, the mortgage rates have doubled in the last 3.5 years. The wages, which went up enormously, 135% during Trump. 135% during Trump have dropped. So wages are actually 2.2% lower since the Biden administration took office. So I think, you know, if you want to look at who is going to do better for Black Americans in this country, that the evidence suggests that it's going to be President Trump. I'm going to be in the White House. And as you guys know, this has been one of my priorities my whole life. And I don't think you're going to get a repeat of 2016 to 2020. If you did, I would leave. I don't think that's the way that it's going to be. I think that, you know, there's going to be people in there who for whom the condition of Black Americans is a priority and a lifetime priority for me. It's something I've been working on my entire life, that my family's been working on since the early 60s. And for me, I'm going to make that a priority to the extent that I can of this administration.
So I just want to ask you something, because you mentioned your family, and, you know, I'm a huge admirer of what your family represents.
Thank you.
Has your decision to endorse Trump caused further strife
Yes.
within your family?
Yeah. My family is at the center of the Democratic Party. There's 5 members of my family who work for the Biden administration. And, you know, they're very, very, the idea that I would endorse a Republican is utter heresy for them. So it's very alarming to them. You know, President Biden has a bust of my father behind him at the Oval Office. And then, you know, I think it should be exciting for every American that we have the potential now to get the first woman president, and it happens to be a woman of color. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you can make the argument either way. I had to, because of the issues that I think are central to the future of our country, you know, I made the decision I did, but it was not an easy decision. And for my family, it's very, very troubling.
Was there no conversation to be had with your family as far as fixing some of the issues that you saw popping up in the Democratic Party?
I tried to, and I tried to meet with Kamala. Mm-hmm. So after Trump made me this offer, I said to myself, I should go and see if she will do the same thing. So I reached out to her, and, you know, I have ways to contact her directly, because I still have a lot of friends within the Democratic Party, and they all tried. And she said, I'm not going to meet with them. I'm not even going to talk with them on the phone. Oh, you know, things could have been very different if she had picked up the phone at any point, or anybody in the Democratic Party had. I tried to talk to them many, many times, and they just said no.
But your family, your own family, nothing there?
My family, well, there's 5 members of my family that have been vocal against me, but I have 105 people in my family, and many of them are supporting me. There are some who have been, you know, working my campaign. And the part of my family that is important to me, you know, my kids, my wife is not happy. You know, the idea of me supporting Donald Trump is you know, is very hard in her industry. And personally, you know, she comes from a redneck part of Florida, which is North Florida, right? Which is really like South Alabama. And but her family is kind of a, you know, a liberal, ultra liberal family in that place. She was raised in a trailer. She came up very poor, but she always she was, you know, fighting for civil rights, even in the 60s when it was very unpopular in her area. And for, you know, sexual, for gay rights, etc. And so she is like an ultra liberal. And for her, this is, you know, really a very, very difficult decision that I've made.
And the main thing fueling this decision are kids, surveillance,
and public health, you know.
Public health.
I mean, let me just give you a couple of examples. When I was a kid, you know, kids with diabetes. Everybody in this room knows somebody with diabetes. When I was your age, I knew nobody with diabetes because it didn't exist. When I was a kid, a typical pediatrician would see 1 case of diabetes in his lifetime in a 40 or 50-year career. Today, 1 out of every 3 kids who walks through his office door is diabetic, and diabetes disproportionately affects Black Americans. You all know kids with autism. When I was a kid, there was no autism. Autism was 1 in 10,000 in my generation. Today, it's 1 in every 34 kids, 1 in every 22 boys. So we are destroying this generation of kids. And then they all have autoimmune diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, Crohn's disease, these exotic diseases that didn't exist. And they have neurological diseases. All, you know, kids in all of these schools around here on Adderall. That is standard. You give them these to keep them calm, to manage their behavior. I was a kid. Nobody was on Adderall. All of a sudden, you had these explosions of ADD, ADHD, speech delay, language delay, tics, Tourette syndrome, narcolepsy, ASD, autism, all of this unknown when I was a kid. Allergic diseases. Peanut allergies, virtually, I never met anybody with a peanut allergy when I was a kid. I had 11 siblings. I had about 70 first cousins, and none of them had food allergies, and yet 5 of my 7 kids do, because they're all being poisoned. They're being mass poisoned, and the people who are being poisoned most are the people who are eating processed foods. And guess what? We have an $80 billion food stamp program. 70% of that is going to processed foods. So we are mass poisoned because the processed food industry, Coca-Cola, owns Congress, and they have blocked every effort to ban it. 10% of the money spent on processed foods goes for sugar drink, which is just pure poison. It is giving people diabetes, kids diabetes. You shouldn't be allowed to get those drinks. And guess what the Coca-Cola company did? They gave millions of dollars to the NAACP to bribe them to tell people that banning sugar drinks from the food stamp program was racist. It's not racist. Making every black kid sick is racist, right? So
it's racist. Wow.
Yeah. So Trump get elected.
No, that's crazy.
And Trump wants to change this. Kamala does not.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
Show me one statement where she even talks about it.
I don't believe
Why don't
that.
you believe
I
it?
think politicians go onto their platforms with the issues they're pushing in order to get elected. But I wouldn't sit here and say that Kamala doesn't want that to
I gotta
happen.
ask the question.
Well,
Kamala's been in office the past couple of years. Has it changed?
No, she's the VP. She's white. You keep giving her like the
You guys
president's power when she's the vice president.
Trump was in office for 4 years as the president, and it didn't change. So you can't use that.
Bro, you know that Kamala Harris was responsible for bringing back small businesses after the pandemic? Like people run with this ideology like the vice president don't do anything. They'll remove any type of responsibility
That's a bad
it's
thing.
convenient. So what?
That's a bad thing?
No.
She brought back small businesses
No, she
after
did.
the pandemic?
She did. Most of the small businesses disappeared after the pandemic.
Brody, here's the bottom line. Again, I'm not a political scholar.
And to answer your question,
character seems to be a major thing here.
All right, if you want to
You can have all the policy in the world. What this boils down to for me is my belief that you're going to do what you say you were going to do. I don't know if she's going to do what she says she's going to do. I don't believe he's going to do what he says he's going to do because of character. And that's bottom line. I don't know if she's going to do everything. I don't believe he's going to do what he says he's going to do.
So you're at a stalemate.
No.
What about the rest of us who care about facts?
No. I'm not.
And have hope.
I'm not at
for tomorrow. What about the rest of us who don't wake up like, maybe not?
I mean, look how many weeks it took before Kamala put out what her policies were. We didn't know what she got the nomination before anybody knew what she was running on.
Bro, I'm not at a stalemate at all. To answer your question, I'm not at a stalemate at all. And again, I see what the policies say. Everybody's policies look fantastic. Everybody's talking the flyest language possible. Everybody's saying fly shit. I get that. They're supposed to. Wouldn't vote for them if they said they were going to do some wild shit in office. Wouldn't vote for them. So it's supposed to sound good. I get that. I don't believe he's going to do those things.
That's your opinion.
I'm not. Of course it is. And I'm not beating anybody else in the head too. Believe me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't believe it either.
Hold on a second. I want to ask this question.
So let me just say that.
I want to ask this question.
And I also know what I saw when he didn't win the election the last time. And so, like, we're just ignoring the fact that people were climbing the walls like savages. And that was okay. That was inciting.
He's not Professor X. He didn't make all those people do that.
He didn't say it as...
But they said...
What are we talking about here? I want to ask this
we were talking about the insurrection. That's what we were talking about.
Before I take this 5-minute break, I want to ask this question. You may not believe she's going to do what she says or he's going to do what he says. Do you believe that he will do what he says?
I believe he'll try. I believe he has good intentions. I don't believe Trump has good intentions. And I'm not sure what Kamala's intentions are.
If MECCA's hopeful, boy, you gotta take
Well,
that.
That's not what I said.
You gotta take it.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said at all.
Status is not.
That's not what I said at all.
Let's take a 5-minute break. All right, guys. For everybody that's been watching, these are real conversations that we're having. It's the conversations that happen not just in the barbershop, in households, in the workplace. There is a lot of divide. There's a lot of misinformation, a lot of facts that are just in a gumbo, and everybody is trying to figure out what it is. I've never met Kamala Harris. I've never met Donald Trump. But I sat across from this man. I like to believe that I'm a good judge of character. So if you are appointed to choose these government officials, what is the criteria for you?
Can I say something about the conversation that we just had?
Yeah.
Because I thought that was a beautiful conversation. I think this is what Americans should be doing. You know, we should be able to argue with each other and differ with each other on issues without hating each other. And
ow, man!
You know,
Get that fixed.
Come on, I'm stronger than that.
Get
Come
that
on.
fixed. Don't act different. Get that fixed.
But you know, it was a beautiful conversation. I was just sitting back here and listening to it. It was beautiful because you guys love each other, and it's like my family. I grew up in that we were raised to argue with each other with passion, with information. But at the same time, leave that argument loving each other. And, you know, that's what Americans need to do. Abraham Lincoln said, a house divided cannot stand. What I said, you know, when I endorsed Trump is I said, the only thing that can save this country is if we decide we're going to love our children more than we hate each other. The things that we love about this country, none of them are going to survive if we continue to hate on each other. And it doesn't mean, you know, you can't really dislike Donald Trump and you can't have problems about, you know, what happened on January 6th. That could be revolting and appalling to you, but we need to be able to learn to talk with each other like you guys. This was really a lesson in, you know, in dialogue and conversation and passion, but at the same time, kindness, understanding, and humor. I want to say one other thing about this subject, and it's about who's a racist and not a racist. I do not believe, and I've known Joe Biden for 40 years, I do not believe there's anything racist about Joe Biden at all. The opposite, I think, is true. But Joe Biden gave us the 1986 omnibus drug bill. And he gave it with the provision in it that punished cocaine, powder cocaine 1/10 of the penalties as crack cocaine. And he gave us authored the 1994 omnibus crime bill, which had the super predatory provisions. It had the 3 strikes you were out. It had mandatory sentencing. Those 2 bills doubled in 8 years the number of Black Americans in prison. Since the Civil War till 1986, the same rough number of Blacks were in prison. After that, it doubled. Joe Biden did that. He was the author, he was the primary sponsor, and he did that. It was probably the worst thing that happened to Black people in the last 40 years. But he's not racist. Oh, I think ultimately what we have to decide is who's gonna be better for Black people when they get in there, and not think of, you know, who's racist and he is, because I think that distracts us. You know, a lot of those preoccupations distract us, and we can find deficiencies in both of the candidates. So that's what I would say. And then your question is the criteria. I want a clean environment. I want to make sure that in terms of issues in the Black community, that there's capital in the Black community. I want to make sure that the worst things, the 3 worst things that have happened to Blacks is, one is the school to prison pipeline, the complete draining of capital from the black community, the systematic theft of equity, of ownership, of home ownership in the black community. The destruction of black banks in this country. There's only 24 left. And they're all underfinanced. And then the schools, the charter school, we need charter schools. We can't, the schools are broken and we are warehousing kids instead of educating them, and that's a crime. If they have an education, they get out of the schools with the confidence they can overcome anything. But if you have kids who are in school and we are failing them and they get out and they can't read or write, they're doomed for life. And then the last issue, and to me the most important, is health. If you have sick kids, if you have obese kids, if you have diabetic kids and kids who need insulin shots and Adderall, you know, that is destroying the black community. So what I'm going to look for is people who are going to end those crises, who understand them. And I know who many of these people are because I talk to them all the time, and who can solve these problems and are committed to solving them and try to put them in a position where they can actually do what they want to do.
Bobby Kennedy. What are we looking for? How do we get involved?
Well, you guys are all already doing it. Like I said, I got my start in this podcast. You gave me my first platform, and I'm really grateful to you guys. And you know, I love this conversation. This is one of the most enjoyable conversations I've had since the beginning of this campaign, because this is the way America is supposed to work. Right. And all of you are idealistic. You all love this country. You want, you know, good things for our people. You want prosperity and, you know, all those things that America is supposed to represent. So, and we need to be able to continue to argue with each other.
Yeah, of course. I love arguing with that.
We don't do that. Everybody loves
it's half the show.
It's half the show.
Half the show.
Okay, with that said, because we have it on camera, we now need a banner that says, I got my start on my expert.
Bobby Kennedy, we out of here.
It's hot for trapper turn smack rapper. Only smack rapper that you know is smack rapper.